we're born to survive, for survival is actually safety. Okay? So anybody's behaviour that you might like or dislike is all based on creating safety of some sort for my survival. So if I'm telling you how to ride your bike up that hill, that's because I am in some way trying to have some sense of control over the situation. Maybe I'm trying to advise you because I'm a bit worried that you're going to fall in the road and hurt yourself, and I can't have that because then I feel bad that I have to correct you. And you know, we innately want to be connected and look after each other because we're social animals. But ultimately, my need to tell other people what to do will be largely based on my need to create a level of safety that I'm never left out of the group, or I'm never disconnected from the group. Because the first level of safety is to be connected with my group. So if I can make sure that what you do, I have some sense of control over what you do, it creates, it's actually a false sense of security because there is no such thing as control in a way, but my feeling in need of control is about creating safety. So anybody that has control issues has issues of safety. Anybody that is trying to tell you what to do, anybody that is telling you you're right or wrong, anybody that is even somebody who's helpfully trying to support you, is ultimately creating a level of safety that's safe for them. And in social beings, safety for the group is safe for me. So if I'm creating a safe place for you, I'm also creating a safe place for me. Okay? So it's not that it's not altruistic, it's not that, in a relationship I create safety for Vic, but looking after Vic is keeping me happy too, right? So I'm still creating a level of safety for me, always. Okay? Being in my group, being with another person and being connected with other people is safety. So when we talk about children behaving in a certain way, children who behave in a bad way, and it looks like they're fighting and pushing people away, or even in relationships fighting and pushing people away, is I'm afraid that's going to happen anyway, I'm trying to get it over with so I can move on and deal with it. When I used to have this habit, because I was convinced, I've got time to backtrack on this. Yeah. We have convoluted thought processes, which we're going to get into more tomorrow. My thought here is not my thought. It's my thought here, linked by a sequence of thoughts that is my real thought. Because of my upbringing, I felt people didn't understand me, didn't appreciate me, didn't get who I was. I had no major trauma, just minor traumas. One particular event when I was 4, when my mum didn't appear to understand something that was important to me. It was only a colouring book, but my mum didn't get something that she shouldn't have because she was my mum, right? So the fact that she didn't get that this current book was really important was what we call a small T trauma. It was a freeze response where I didn't have a way of handling it because she didn't act the way I thought she should have acted to protect my current book. So I thought, well, if my mum, basically the belief that went in was, well, if my mum doesn't understand me, no one else is going to get me. Okay? So at 4, my mum was just keeping the peace. No, it's not doing any harm. But my book. So once we have a learning, that learning drives our need to create, for survival, to create safety. So now I'm looking for people to not understand me so I can be ready. Because I need to do something about it to prevent it from happening. So now it's happened, it goes into the database. We'll do more on this tomorrow. It goes into the database and it now is there ready for me to preempt it so it doesn't happen again. So now I'm expecting and looking for people not to get me. So no matter how much they might get me 23.5 hours in a day, or 23 hours and 55 minutes, I'm waiting for the one where I go, see, I knew it! I knew you were not going to understand at all. I knew it was going to happen. Okay? So he has to think about this, he's experienced this. It doesn't matter how much everyone understands me, that's not an alarm bell, that's all right. It's the alarm.
Did we have an order from the
oh, did anyone want to order any food from? No?
Yeah.
No?
Nope.
No, thank you. So I'm looking for that now, because it's a survival issue, so I've got to be ready. So even though I don't want it to happen, I expect it to happen, so when I see I think it does, then I've got to be ready. So rather than being defensive, I'm ready to deal with it. So this is when Vic can listen to me for an hour, and at the end he'll go, I'll be like, shit, I knew you weren't paying attention, you weren't listening, you just, and this is the validation thing, you just, oh no, I've got blue on my shirt. Now he's not validating me for that 1 second that he looked at his watch. So that's it, everything else that happens is just like fucking wild. That's it. You're just not paying attention to anything I said. It doesn't matter that he totally was perfect for the rest of the time. The problem is that what's underneath is greater than that response. So that response is totally out of proportion to what actually just happened. Because, and I can make myself cry really easily on this if I do. So there was a conversation we had, I think it might have been a book actually, about a banana. I was assisting Carl Dawson training. We'd been eating a lot of crap for a week before. So I said to Vic, I don't think I'm going to eat anything during the day today. I'm just going to drink my tea, and then when I come home in the evening, we'll have a nice meal. Now Vic's got other stuff, right? Vic's stuff's different to my stuff. Vic's stuff about he's responsible for other people, he needs to make sure they're okay. He definitely needs to make sure they're well fed and they're all right, and that they don't go hungry, okay? And that's what he's learned. So his response to me saying, I'm not going to have anything to eat today, I'm going to just drink my tea and eat tonight, was, well, there's some bananas there, if you want to take a banana or something with you. So my response is, fucking part of me not having anything to eat. Did you not understand? Right? Okay. And I would have once been like, but things change when you start to get your own triggers, right? And the reason I can be different now is, although I can see that and go, oh, that's Vic trying to feed me up and make sure I don't starve. And you know, he may even be right now. I've also started to realise that maybe by lunchtime, maybe I might have wanted a banana as well, even though I still didn't. The belief system that I had is, okay, and this is when it gets about survival, existential, right? See if I can remember it. It's always gets back to, all roads lead to Rome, and that's the other thing we're going to get, right? So, you didn't validate what I said. I said I didn't want to eat something, and you just totally overrode that. So you didn't validate what I said. And if you don't validate what I say, you can't really think what I say is important. If you don't think what I say is important, then I'm not very important. And you can't really get me at all. And if you don't get me, you can't really love me. And if you don't love me, well, what's the point of me being here? And if what's the point of me being here, then I can't really be who I want to be. And if I can't be who I want to be, then I can't do what I can't fulfill my purpose, even if I didn't know what it was. Right? But there's no point if I can't be myself. Because if even you don't get me and I can't be me, then what's the point? So from saying, take a banana just in case, okay, actually, I feel like, well, is life really worth living if I can't be myself? Now, we've all got that all the time. So when someone says, no, you should stay in this job and do this, in our head, there's this connection to something existential, to something that's to do with the survival. What we need to do, or what is helpful to do, is to know that sequence and to listen to it. And actually validate it ourselves, that we have that conversation in our head. Because trust me, it happens very quick. Because all we get is that feeling of, and we don't tend to know where it's come from. But where it's come from is that trigger. Okay? So when we fill in the boxes now, we're going to go through the boxes. I want you could focus generally on your health and your general behaviour, or you could. And I think I've given you 5 pages to put 5 different symptoms. And we're just going to kind of start with one to begin with. But when you fill in the online questionnaire and when you start to think about what you're coming for, there could be a physical symptom or there could be a particular trigger response. So mine was anger. And that, you know, there's a banana if you want. It didn't even say take a banana. It just said, well, there's a banana on the side if you want one. Okay, but to me, it was just like, ignored everything I've just said. Okay, so that was a behaviour I wanted to change. There was a response in me, and it is a physical one, but there was an emotional response in me that I didn't have any control over, I didn't have any understanding of. So that was one thing that I focused on to change. So when we start to look at what would you like to focus on, it doesn't really matter. There'll be, trust me, there'll be a correlation between your physical symptoms and your behaviours and your emotions, and we'll get to that anyway. So it doesn't matter whether you start by saying, I have a particular physical symptom I'd like to understand better, I have a particular behaviour that I don't understand, or I have a particular emotion I don't feel I have any control over. It doesn't, or a thought process. It doesn't matter, they're all symptoms. Okay? Whether it's emotional, physical, mental, they're all symptoms of something preventing my safety for my survival. And they'll all be connected, but we just don't know that yet. Okay? So you can use any of them as symptoms, it doesn't matter. Like I said, all roads will lead to Rome. So I'm going to kind of give you about 20 minutes, I reckon. And on page 4, I put this back in. We don't need to spend much time on this, but on page 4, I put all of these things back in. And thank you for doing them online, by the way. Because even if you may identify that there may be one or other of these that are particularly causing, the point is there's no right and wrong, actually. There could be all of them, or any of them, because it could be any combination of them that you might not even realise. Because underneath it, you may have had a past accident, or it could be your upbringing, but then it could be your job on top, or it could be... even though we know that we can change our genetic readout, we can turn genes on and off, it doesn't mean that you didn't actually inherit that gene being turned on from your family anyway. We'll talk more about Bruce Lipton again tomorrow. But basically, Bruce Lipton has, you know, proven, if you like, or teaches on a cellular level how well, it's not the only person teaching epigenetics now. There are quite a few people teaching epigenetics. But basically, it is the chemical messages that get sent to our genes that turn genes on and off. And because we now understand that how we feel and our emotions and our responses to stress create that chemical environment, and that chemical environment is a response to what we perceive to be safe or not safe, basically, our perceptions can turn on and off our genes. That's the long and short of it. But our perception of what danger is creates our response to danger, or response to safety. And that response actually is what tells our body how to adapt and change. So if we have certain genes turned on, maybe historically by something happened to, you know, to our tribe, or something happened to our family, or our parents, and we're born with that gene turned on. Firstly, it doesn't actually necessarily predispose us to an illness. it doesn't cause illness, it can just predispose us, it can make us more likely. What makes us more likely is to have the same perceptions that our family had as well, because they also get passed on. So we're predisposed genetically, but then we actually inherit the same perceptions, and that's why we're more likely to combine those two together and develop an illness. Whereas if we know we can change our perceptions, and we can actually tell our body we no longer need this facility, because now we can create a level of safety and release what happened, and process what happened, then actually we can turn the genes on and off as we need. Okay? So that's just a bit of amazing science, but Bruce Lipton explains it a little bit more complex than my very brief overview there. So I put that back in just because it may be worth looking at. It wasn't like a trick question where if you put, ha-ha, it's my nationality or where I was born. No, it isn't a trick, it's all actually... it actually, all of these things may contribute. It's basically nature and nurture. We'll look more at thresholds tomorrow as well, whereas all of the things that start adding up and contributing start to affect your threshold for health, your ability to manage stress, your ability to have resilience, to create resilience. So if you inherited a certain genetic predisposition, and then you had a bad birth, and then your current relationship is pretty crappy, and you're unsure about your job, and the way you were brought up was different, and you've got general wear and tear because of the kind of job you do more than other people. All of these things will create a various, let's say, a health situation for you. So the reason it's there is, bearing all that in mind, the way that you've handled things so far has been based on your ability to create that safety for survival. When we do the health plan at the end, on the last day, we'll look at some of these environmental things, some of these kind of spiritual issues, some of these physical issues, some of these emotional issues, and we'll look at what you can do to create a better plan of how these things may affect your threshold. Okay, so threshold really is your ability to manage many things, many factors that could impact your ability to stay healthy. What I'd like you to do is on page 5, so there's 5 pages of this same, but just using the first one to, well, first one or two, I guess, if you want to start breaking things down. Start to look at what symptom we'd most like to understand, how that affects you, what it prevents you from doing, and I'll talk a little bit more about the last box afterwards. And I might even introduce you to Cartesian coordinates, which is stuff that it's an NLP technique that Richie Hicks can use.
Is that Descartes? Is that Cartesian?
I don't know.
No,
I just know.
it's brought back memory from philosophy years ago.
It's about double negatives.
Right.
There's a lot of not. Vic hates it because he's learned proper English and studied English at degree level and all that. So when you start talking about not questions, and this is not that, and it's not. It's like, that's not right. It's not right English. So it's not supposed to be right English. It's supposed to make you go what? So it's I don't know whether it's related to that or not. It might be. I can't remember. It's on Wikipedia.
Right, I'll look at it.
Yeah. But basically, the question at the end, people tend to not. You need to get into a certain frame of mind to answer it, because it's actually, it's not what would you be able to do without this. It's what wouldn't you be able to do. And we'll talk a bit about it after. So if you do the first 3 boxes. If you need to split a behaviour from a symptom, if you've got a symptomatic behaviour, then use a different page for it, use a different one. But I just want you to have a think about what you would like to like to address? Actually, I'll go through you bit by bit. So rather than give you 20 minutes to do the pages I want you to do, let's say we'll give you just 5 or 7 minutes to do that one, and then I'll come back to the next one. Pretty easy that way.
So we are doing big box, first box?
So the first 3 boxes,
First three.
yeah.
I'm going to move it while you're doing this.
And